All right, so we are continuing our preparation for the HSB, Human and Social Biology exam. And we want to look at question 4 for the 2024 January paper 2 exam. Now, what I would love for you to do as a student is to have the papers physically, if you can, and while we have our discussion, you make the jottings as it relates to your answers. And you can have that to do your revision, your continuous preparation for your exams. Now, this is Buckle Down Tutoring Services. We specialize in providing solutions, we do classes, we do online content as it relates to the sciences. I am Mr. Thomas. So let's get right into it. Now, it says define the term pollutant. Now, when you think of a pollutant, you're thinking of a substance that is either providing energy or it creates an undesirable scenario or situation, or it makes the environment undesirable or can cause harm or health issues to humans and other living organisms. So this is a substance that when you introduce it into the environment, it will cause ill effects on the human or the organisms that are living within that environment. Part 2 says identify one of an agricultural pollutant, one example of an agricultural pollutant, and one example of an industrial pollutant. Now, as you know, agriculture deals with the growing of crops and the rearing of animals, and it would have impacts, especially if you're not doing organic farming, where persons will utilize things such as agrochemicals. These include the pesticides, they include fertilizers. So pesticide, as you know, will be able to venture into the aquatic environment for one, and it can cause harm. We also have fertilizers. Fertilizers that are very high in nitrates and phosphates can basically seep into the water table and get into different water bodies, whether a pond or a lake, and the algal in that pond will just be happy. They're going to be feeling so great to have this excess nutrients that they will just explode in their population, and they create issues in terms of the other organism by utilizing, blocking the sunlight. Industrial pollutants, of course, you know, one of the things that we utilize are fossil fuels, and fossil fuels oftentimes contain sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, which nitrogen dioxide can lead to smog. Sulfur dioxide can lead to acid rain. So those pollutants. You also have things such as heavy metal, other toxins that can lead to other illness. Some of them are even carcinogens. They cause cancer. So industrial pollutants are there. So for agricultural, you can have pesticides or fertilizers. We can have fossil fuels for industrial heavy metals that will cause some form of unsuitable condition in our environment for the living organisms. Part 3 says, and it's, as we said, this is what the pollutants do. They cause harm to the human beings, to the organisms that are living. Let's take a look at how we can explain two harmful effects of air pollution, right? And of course, you will have some amount of respiratory problems. That's a maybe the one that you as a student will think about. The air quality is poor, and so it will affect our respiratory system. And so that can lead to asthma, other respiratory diseases. The thing about the pollutants, as I said before, sometimes they have even carcinogens in the pollutant, or they're considered carcinogens, and they themselves may even again lead to lung cancer. So the persons may be affected by lung cancer. Now, when you think about not only the diseases, some of these pollutants can cause humans to have birth defects. This 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 situation where a child or a human being born, and they're not able to have proper cognitive um, approach in terms of how they move and handle or walk. So we have some amount of birth defects. It can have some link to your heart. Now, some of these pollutants can even get into your blood vessels. They can over a period of time, and that is sometimes the situation with human beings. If we don't see it happening immediately, we're not recognizing that there's a problem. But over time, being exposed to the pollutant, you can have a buildup of plaque in one of your arteries, and that leads to some form of heart disease, high blood pressure, and you lead to some form of you have maybe a heart attack, cardiac arrest, something related to the heart. So those are some effects of air pollution. So we spoke about the respiratory challenges that a person may have. The cognitive development may have reduced. We have birth defects. We have cancer that we can speak about in terms of the pollution, air pollution in particular. Now, B is looking, it says the Caribbean Sea supports 37 nation state economies and is considered one of the habitats most seriously damaged by human activity. Unfortunately, sometimes, humans they're more of a danger to themselves based on our activity. If you watch my videos, you will hear me mention about the bittersweet. We have to do certain things, but at the same time, at what point or to what expense do we get these things done? So we want to travel, we want to get um, around, we want to have development on our coastline, we want to have our beaches, we want to set up hotels that are close by to get tourists for our countries, but at what expense? So it says explain two ways in which the pollution of the Caribbean Sea could affect its region's economies. Now, I tell students, once you see that word economy, you automatically jump out and you may think money, which is good. And so, on a simply put, once you get a question that says economy, you're going to think of how is it that it's going to cost more money, or how is it that it's going to allow persons to lose money? So, two ways in which pollution will affect the economy. How is it going to, and this is something negative because it's pollution, so how it's going to negatively cause Caribbean countries not to acquire the funds that they need, or they're not able to maximize. So, one, automatically once you have pollution, then you're going to, if you want to maintain or have that continuous inflow, the Caribbean is one of those tourist destination sites. And so if you want to have the continuous inflow of tourists to your region, then the aesthetic, the appearance of the beaches and the sea is one that will affect, because nobody wants to come to a area that is not properly kept. So right there, it's going to cause us to lose money as it relates to tourism. So if we are not careful, then we doing the pollution, then it's going to make the aesthetic appearance, right? The appeal to fall, to reduce. It's not going to look as attractive to the tourists to, to want to come to Jamaica or any other Caribbean country. So that's one. If it is that the pollution occurs, then you would have to take out money out of the countries may have their different budget presentation. And so instead of having money to do something new, you would have to take money to try and do cleanup. So you'd have to do some form of initiative to get the beaches to a standard that would be acceptable so that the tourists can continue coming. So pollution, if you have pollution of the sea, then money would be needed to do some form of cleanup. The next thing, pollutions, and I've seen videos where persons are taking bottles or other items from the inside of a fish, and so it's going to affect the ecosystem, the 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 the, the organisms that are living in the sea at that point will be greatly affected. You can cause extinction maybe of some species that are not able to adjust to the levels of pollution. Pollution may tamper with the water quality, the obstruction of movement of these organisms, damage to habitats that we have. And so those are two ways. The thing about it, you will have to maybe even include something as related to healthcare. Now, due to the pollution of the water, persons come in and the stench or the quality of the water is causing surrounding areas, persons to get ill. And so that's an additional cost to the country or the region to ensure that we treat our population so that to prevent any spread of any diseases. So that is also another way that you can look at it. All right. Part 2 says recommend 3 actions that could be taken by Caribbean governments to help protect the Caribbean Sea. One of the things that you can do is to, if you look at it, it's really our activity, mainly a human activity, that is creating the problem. And so public awareness. We in Jamaica, the No Dirty Up Jamaica campaign, right? And it aims at reducing waste, how persons go about disposing of their garbage, because sometimes, maybe half of the time, if the garbage are improperly disposed of, it gets into the sea. So if we can allow persons to be aware, and they will throw their bottles outside of their cars or dump their garbage close to a water body. If it rains, the bottles get washed into the aquaculture area or the water bodies, and then it will be taken to the sea. And so if that happens, then it will lead to the pollution that we're trying to not take place. So if we really want to have persons taking action, the government of a Caribbean country can do so through public awareness. Let them understand the implications of placing or improper disposal of their garbage, what will happen along that line. The next thing that you can do is to monitor areas. We have in some Caribbean countries protected sites. We have institutions like NEPA and other agencies that are responsible to ensure that some persons, such as like activities as fishing, dumping, they're not doing it in areas that they should not. So you have fishing sanctuaries where you basically have persons going into those areas if not monitored, and so you have develop, or the country, the government can develop protected sites where nobody should be going there, and if they're caught, they can be fined. And this will basically put a little damp on persons just freely going to areas to carry out different activities. Again, going back to the bittersweet, we want to have our leisure activities such as fishing, but do we do it in such a way that we go there and while we fish, we disrupt the habitats of the organism, creating problems? So sustainable fishing practices, improved waste management. There is sometimes where the hotels, I don't have full proof, but you might have situations where persons are dumping their waste into the sea directly, and this is illegal. And so again, the government has policies that they should put in place to ensure that these companies are held accountable in case they are doing things like that. So preparing policies, some of them may not, they might be dumping or having waste, or it should be treated before it reaches to the sea. And if they're caught, they can be fined along that line. So public awareness, policies, protected areas, and we want to, not all the time we can, as a Caribbean, can do it ourselves. So we tend to look to the more developed countries at times. So international cooperation is also another thing that we can look at. Ask for assistance from these more developed countries to help us protect our sea. So improve waste management, how we go about disposing of our waste is another good point. So part C says Rebecca lives in a rural area with many rivers and ponds. She observes that several fish and plants in the waterways are dying, but she can find no evidence of water pollution. While watching the evening news, she learns that air pollutants are being blown into the area from the industrialized city 50 miles away. Explain one way in which these air pollutants may be causing the aquatic organisms to die. And so, even for the previous question, we said that it is the responsibility, that was, it was looking at the Caribbean in terms of the Caribbean Sea and the region. And here we have a question that really shows up that persons would have to be accountable. These particles are blowing from 50 miles away and still causing harm. So it's not, sometimes if we're not seeing it at our doorstep, we may think that, hey, it's not affecting anybody, but it can be affecting a pond, a river, miles away. And here's how. When these particles land in the water, these particles may cause a change in the quality of the water. They may even cause the water to become more acidic. And so if it changes the pH of the water, organisms that are not able to adjust to this new acidic condition will basically die out. So the fact that it is falling into the water, maybe adjusting the pH or the quality of the water, and so it will cause the organisms to now die. These pollutants may have toxic chemicals in them that would eventually cause maybe cancer to the plants, and not necessarily the plants, sorry, but the fishes that are inside of it. And while it does not happen, we have terms such as bioaccumulation. So over a period of time, these small particles fall into the pond, and you may not see the death of the organisms right away, but you have a situation where, due to the constant blowing of the air pollutants in the water, it gets accumulated. We also have another term as biomagnification, where these substances, when you have a smaller fish eating and gets eaten by a larger fish, or it is a part of a producer in the pond, and the consumer eats this producer, then you have the toxin being magnified, and then it will start to show its effect in the organism that is highest in the food chain, and so the aquatic organism starts to die. So those are two ways. We also have the concept again where you might have these pollutants have high nitrate or high phosphate, and they cause an increase in the population of algae, which causes algal bloom. And that in itself will block the sunlight, causing the phytoplanktons and other organisms not being able to um, photosynthesize. And once they're not able to do that, no oxygen will be in the water, or a limited amount, and this will lead to the death of organisms that are in the aquatic environment. So this is the end of question 4. I hope it was beneficial. Remember, you can like, you can share, you can comment on the delivery. Help us to make it better for you. What is it that you would want us to do? The next topic, or next paper, next question. And we appreciate the positive feedback. We've been getting a lot of positive feedback from students as it relates to how these videos were very helpful in terms of preparing them for their exams. So again, thank you.